David Thorne had everything a man could dream of: a sprawling mansion atop the city's highest hill, a fleet of luxury cars parked in his garage, and a name that echoed power across continents. But none of it mattered as much as his daughter, Lily. From the moment she was born, she had been his entire world, his reason for working late nights and making tough decisions. David spared no expense to give Lily the best life imaginable, shielding her from pain, hardship, and disappointment. Lily was bright, kind-hearted, and gentle, the kind of girl who lit up a room simply by entering it. She attended prestigious schools, excelled in every subject, and always followed the rules. But as she approached her 18th birthday, David began to see something he hadn't noticed before. Beneath her flawless exterior, Lily was fragile, sheltered, and painfully naive about the world beyond their gilded bubble. David's mind churned with worry. His daughter's life was a delicate snow globe, perfect but utterly fragile. He feared that if she faced the harsh realities of life unprepared, she would crumble like glass. "She needs to toughen up," he muttered one evening, alone in his study. "If she never confronts fear, she'll never learn to survive." The thought haunted him. How could he teach her courage when he had spent years protecting her from everything? No school, no lesson, no speech could prepare her like real experience. Raw, dangerous, and unpredictable. On a gray afternoon, David sat in his penthouse overlooking the city, watching Lily laugh softly with her friends. She was carefree, oblivious to the real world's dangers. That's when he made a decision, one that would change both their lives forever. The next morning, David called Lily into his office. The air was heavy with anticipation. "I have something for you," he said, voice firm yet cryptic. Lily smiled, expecting another lavish present. Jewelry? A car? A trip around the world? She could not have been more wrong. David handed her a plain envelope. Inside was a single sheet of paper with one instruction: take care of Brutus for 90 days. Brutus? Lily echoed, confused. "Wait until you meet him," David said with a faint, unreadable smile. That afternoon, a large cage was delivered to their home. When Lily opened it, she was face to face with the biggest, most intimidating dog she had ever seen. Brutus was a massive, muscular beast with coarse black fur and fierce amber eyes. His sharp teeth flashed as he growled low in his throat. Dangerous, the delivery man warned quietly. Unadoptable. Bit 3 people before they sent him here. Lily's heart pounded. She was terrified. David watched her reaction silently, certain that the dog's wild spirit would crush his daughter's fragile resolve. This was his test. A challenge to push Lily beyond her comfort zone, to force her to confront fear head-on. Over the next few hours, David explained his plan. Brutus was not a pet. He was a lesson. You must train him, control him, live with him. If you succeed, you'll be stronger than you ever imagined. Lily was stunned. The luxury and ease of her life seemed to vanish overnight. She felt trapped, overwhelmed by the snarling dog who paced restlessly in the corner. But deep down, a spark flickered, a strange mixture of fear and determination. That night, as thunder rumbled outside, Lily sat in her room, Brutus pacing in his cage. She stared at the dog, then at herself in the mirror. "I have to try," she whispered. David, alone in his study, looked at a photo of Lily as a child. His face was a mask of conflicted emotions, pride, hope, and an unspoken fear that this test might break the one thing he loved most. The next morning, Lily woke to the sound of low, guttural growls echoing through the house. Brutus was awake, pacing in his crate like a storm ready to break. The once pristine, quiet home now felt like a battlefield. Every sharp snap of Brutus's teeth against the metal bars made Lily's heart jump. She had never been around an animal like this before. Growing up, the only creatures she had ever interacted with were well-groomed dogs with wagging tails and gentle eyes. But Brutus was different, raw, unpredictable, and wild. The moment David handed her the leash and said, "You're responsible for him now," Lily's breath caught in her throat. From the outside, David appeared calm, even confident. But inside, He was silently counting the days, certain Lily would give up in less than a week. He had no idea that the next 90 days would challenge him far more than he expected. Lily's first attempts to care for Brutus were filled with terror. He snapped at her fingers when she tried to feed him, barked fiercely whenever she approached, and even managed to break free from the leash during their first walk, running wild through the neighborhood. Neighbors whispered about the dangerous dog on the loose, and Lily felt every eye filled with judgment. She wanted to scream, to run away, to beg her father to take the dog back, but deep down she knew she couldn't. Not yet. She was trapped in a battle she hadn't chosen, and Brutus was the fierce opponent she had to face. For days, Lily barely slept. Every noise in the house sent shivers down her spine. The growls, the pacing, the sudden outbursts of snarling. It all filled her with dread. Yet, amid the fear, something unexpected began to grow. She noticed the dog wasn't mindlessly aggressive. There was pain and confusion in his eyes, just like hers. Late one night, after yet another failed attempt to calm Brutus, Lily sat on the floor, exhausted and defeated. Tears streamed down her cheeks as she whispered, "I don't know if I can do this." But the dog, sensing her vulnerability, softened his growl and nudged her hand gently. For a moment, Lily felt a fragile connection, a crack in the armor of fear. Determined not to fail, Lively turned to books and videos about aggressive dogs, searching for any way to understand Brutus. She learned that harsh punishment only made dogs like Brutus more fearful and dangerous. Instead, calm, consistent, and patient care could slowly break through their walls. Armed with this knowledge, she began small. She sat near Brutus's crate during the day, speaking softly, offering treats by hand, and never forcing contact. The progress was painfully slow, but each day brought a tiny victory. A less hostile growl, a brief lick of her fingers, a moment where Brutus's fierce eyes softened just a little. David watched these changes with skepticism. He had expected Lily to break, to hand the dog back and retreat to her comfortable life. Instead, she was holding her ground, learning resilience in ways money never could buy. One afternoon, Lily faced her biggest challenge yet. Brutus lunged at the mailman, teeth bared and snarling. But instead of panicking, Lily stepped forward, steady and commanding, and shouted firmly, "Brutus." "No." For a terrifying moment, time seemed to freeze. Then Brutus stopped, his growl fading into a low whine. He backed away, eyes locked on Lily's steady gaze. David, who had been watching from the window, felt a jolt of surprise. His daughter was changing. The dangerous dog was no longer the monster he thought would break her. It was becoming her greatest teacher. That night, Lily lay awake, heart pounding but stronger than ever. Brutus, now lying calmly at her feet, was no longer just a wild beast. He was a symbol of everything she was learning about courage, patience, and strength. The first week with Brutus was nothing short of a nightmare for Lily. Each day began with a pit in her stomach and ended with trembling hands and exhaustion. The massive dog had claimed every corner of the house as his territory, and nothing felt safe anymore. The once peaceful halls of the Thorne estate echoed with the sharp sounds of growls, barking, and the occasional crash as Brutus's powerful body slammed into furniture or walls. Lily had never known fear like this. She would startle at every sudden noise, her heart racing uncontrollably when Brutus's eyes locked onto hers with that fierce intensity. His teeth were razor sharp, and even when he was calm, the raw power behind his muscular frame reminded her how vulnerable she truly was. On the third day, Lively tried to take Brutus outside for a walk. As soon as the leash went on, Brutus pulled with frightening strength, nearly dragging her down the driveway. Passers-by gave wary looks, and some hurried past, whispering about the dangerous dog. Lily's cheeks burned with shame and anxiety. She longed for her father's presence, but David had made it clear this was her challenge alone. Back inside, Brutus continued to test every boundary. He tore up rugs, scratched doors, and snarled at anyone who entered the house. Lily's dreams were filled with images of him breaking loose and attacking. Her confidence crumbled with every incident. She wanted to give up but felt trapped by her father's impossible expectation. One night, as the wind howled outside, Lily sat huddled in the living room, clutching a worn book about dog training she had borrowed from the library. The pages were filled with advice on handling aggressive dogs, something she never imagined needing to learn. Her hands trembled as she read about calm, assertive energy and consistent patient training. Suddenly, a low growl broke the silence. Brutus was standing at the doorway, watching her. His eyes were wild, but there was a flicker of something else. Curiosity, maybe even caution. Lily held her breath and slowly reached out her hand, palm up. The dog took a tentative step forward, then another, and finally, he nudged her fingers with his cold nose. It was a small breakthrough, but to Lily, it felt like a victory over a towering mountain. For the first time since Brutus arrived, she believed there was hope. The next day, Lily woke early, determined to learn everything she could about Brutus. She watched videos of trainers working with aggressive dogs, took notes, and planned her approach. She understood now that harsh punishment would only deepen the dog's fear and aggression. Instead, she needed to build trust, slowly, patiently, and without judgment. Armed with new knowledge, Lily tried again. She sat near Brutus's crate, speaking softly and offering treats without forcing contact. Some moments were tense, but others were peaceful. Slowly, the dog's growling lessened. He no longer lunged when she entered the room. Instead, he began to follow her with cautious eyes. Despite the progress, fear still lurked in every corner. Lily worried what would happen if Brutus ever escaped or attacked someone. She dreaded facing her father's disappointment if she failed. But with every challenge, she found a small spark of strength growing inside her, a strength she didn't know she had. On the seventh day, Lily faced her greatest test yet. While letting Brutus out into the backyard, the dog suddenly charged at a stray cat. His aggressive instincts took over, and Lily's heart stopped. She shouted at him, her voice shaking, "Brutus, stop!" To her surprise, Brutus froze mid-pounce. Slowly he backed away, his ears flattening in submission. Lily fell to her knees, tears streaming down her face. In that moment, she realized that her efforts were not in vain. Brutus was listening. He was learning. David watched silently from a distance, his expression unreadable. He had expected his daughter to break under pressure. Instead, she was holding on, tougher, braver, and more determined than he ever imagined. That night, as Lily lay in bed with Brutus sleeping quietly at her feet, she whispered, "We're going to make it, Brutus." Together. Days turned into 2 weeks, and the house slowly began to feel different. The tension that once filled every room had softened, replaced by an unfamiliar calm. Lily woke each morning with a cautious hope, and even Brutus seemed less a threat and more a companion, though the beast still had wild shadows in his eyes. That evening, a storm rolled in, dark clouds swallowing the city in gloom. Thunder growled in the distance, and rain began to lash against the windows like a drumbeat. Lily sat alone in the living room, wrapped in a soft blanket, the muted glow of a lamp casting warm light across the room. Brutus lay nearby, his body tense but still. The storm seemed to shake something inside both of them. As lightning flashed, Brutus stood suddenly and began to pace. His ears flattened, and his growl rumbled deep in his throat. The dog was afraid, just like Lily sometimes felt. Despite her own anxiety, she reached out her hand and softly called his name. "Brutus, it's okay. You're safe," she whispered, her voice steady despite the pounding of her heart. Slowly, Brutus stopped pacing and turned toward her. His amber eyes met hers, wild yet searching. The growl faded to a low whine, and the dog lowered his massive head. Tentatively, he moved closer and rested his heavy muzzle on her knee. Lily's breath caught in her throat. For the first time since the dog arrived, she felt a connection, not just a fragile truce, but something real and fragile, like the first bud of spring after a long winter. That night marked the beginning of a new chapter for both of them. Lily spent hours sitting quietly with Brutus, learning his rhythms and moods. She read more about canine behavior, discovering how past trauma could make dogs like Brutus aggressive and fearful. She realized the dog's snarls and lunges were cries for help, not signs of cruelty. Patiently, she began to establish routines, feeding him at regular times, gently brushing his fur, and talking to him softly even when he seemed uninterested. Brutus started to respond to her presence, no longer viewing her as an intruder but as a guardian. Outside, the neighborhood began to notice the change too. Neighbors who had once kept their distance now offered cautious smiles. Lily even started taking Brutus for short walks, keeping him on a sturdy leash but walking with a quiet confidence she was still learning to trust. One afternoon, while they walked near the park, a group of children approached. Brutus stiffened, muscles taut and ready to defend. But Lily knelt down, whispering calmly, "It's okay, Brutus. They're friends." The children, curious and brave, edged closer. Brutus watched carefully, but did not growl or snap. Instead, he wagged his tail slightly and allowed the small boy to pat his massive head. Lily smiled, tears of relief welling up. She knew this moment was more than progress. It was a breakthrough. Back at home, David observed all of this with mixed emotions. His plan had been to break his daughter's spirit, to toughen her by introducing danger. But instead, he was witnessing something far more powerful, a transformation born of patience, trust, and compassion. One evening after a long day, David approached Lily quietly. "I underestimated you," he admitted, his voice low but sincere. "And Brutus." Lily looked up, surprised but steady. "It's not about breaking me, Dad," she said softly. "It's about learning how to be strong, in ways neither of us expected." For the first time, David felt speechless. The dog that was supposed to teach Lily fear had instead become a mirror reflecting her inner courage. And maybe, just maybe, it was teaching him something too. The days that followed brought a quiet transformation. Lily and Brutus were no longer just owner and dog. They were companions walking a fragile path together. Each morning, Lily would wake with renewed determination, and each night, she felt a little stronger than the day before. The fear that once ruled her life was steadily retreating, replaced by something she had never truly known, courage born from connection. David watched this transformation with a mix of pride and bewilderment. His plan to break Lily's spirit through fear had failed spectacularly, and yet he was beginning to understand the deeper lesson unfolding in front of him. His daughter wasn't breaking, she was rebuilding herself, piece by piece, with a dog who was broken too. One afternoon, as the sun filtered softly through the windows, Lily sat on the floor brushing Brutus's thick black coat. The dog lay calmly beside her, a rare moment of peace in their otherwise turbulent days. As the brush glided through his fur, Lily whispered stories from her childhood, moments of joy and sadness, laughter and tears. It was a ritual that brought comfort to them both. Brutus's fierce eyes softened as he listened. It was clear he was no longer the wild beast who snarled at shadows. There was a spark of trust there now, fragile but undeniable. The breakthrough, however, did not come without setbacks. One morning, after weeks of progress, Brutus snapped suddenly at a delivery man who came to the gate. Lily was shaken, her heart pounding as she pulled Brutus back and apologized profusely. David heard about the incident immediately, and his old fears surged. "Maybe this was a mistake," David muttered during a tense call with Lily. "He's dangerous, and you're not ready." But Lily refused to back down. "I'm not giving up on him. Or myself," she said firmly. Her resolve grew stronger that day. She dove deeper into training, meeting with professional dog trainers who specialized in aggressive breeds. She learned about pack behavior, body language, and how to assert calm authority without intimidation. It wasn't easy. Every session was exhausting, emotionally and physically, but Lily was committed. Slowly, Brutus began responding more to commands. He stopped lunging without warning and started following Lily's lead. The bond between them was becoming something remarkable, a relationship built not on fear, but respect and understanding. David found himself quietly observing from the sidelines, sometimes offering advice, but mostly learning to trust his daughter's instincts. For all his wealth and power, he realized that true strength wasn't about control. It was about patience, empathy, and the courage to face vulnerability. One afternoon, as Lily walked Brutus through the park, they encountered a man walking his own dog, a small terrier that barked furiously at the large black dog. Brutus stiffened, growling low in his throat. Lily immediately tightened the leash and whispered, "Stay calm." For the first time, instead of lashing out, Brutus simply stood his ground, watching carefully but not reacting aggressively. The terrier's owner smiled in surprise, nodding at Lily. It was a small victory, but to Lily, it felt like a giant leap. That evening, Lily called her father. "Brutus is changing, Dad, and so am I." David's voice was quiet, filled with something like awe. "I underestimated both of you." They sat in silence for a moment before David said, "Maybe what we both needed wasn't to break, but to build." Lily smiled, feeling a warmth she hadn't known she needed. Brutus had become more than just a dog. He was a symbol of resilience, a bridge between her fragile past and a stronger future. And for the first time, David was truly proud, not just of his daughter, but of the unexpected journey they were all on together. The turning point came quietly, without fanfare, on an ordinary afternoon that would later be remembered as the day everything shifted. It was a warm spring day, the kind that invites you outside to breathe fresh air and forget troubles, if only for a moment. Lily decided to take Brutus to the nearby nature trail, hoping the fresh surroundings might calm the dog and offer a new environment to test their growing bond. At first, the walk was tense. Brutus stayed close, eyes darting nervously at every rustle in the bushes and every distant sound. His muscles were taut, ready for any sudden threat. Lily's heart pounded alongside his, every instinct telling her to be cautious, to prepare for chaos. But she remembered the lessons she had learned: to stay calm, to be steady, and most importantly, to believe. As they walked deeper into the trail, something changed. Brutus slowed his pace. His ears lowered and his breathing eased. Lily's gentle voice soothed him. "We're safe here, Brutus. Just you and me." They reached a clearing bathed in sunlight, where the trees parted to reveal a small pond. Lily sat down on a fallen log, and Brutus cautiously approached, sniffing the ground before resting his massive head on her lap. The tension that had gripped him for so long melted away, replaced by a rare moment of peace. It was then that a group of hikers appeared on the trail. Among them was a young boy no older than 7, his wide eyes sparkling with excitement as he pointed at Brutus. Normally, Lily would have felt fear ripple through her body. What if Brutus reacted? But this time was different. Lily smiled and called softly, "Brutus, stay." The dog's ears twitched, but he obeyed, sitting calmly beside her. The hikers stopped at a respectful distance, admiring the massive dog without fear. The boy's mother thanked Lily quietly, amazed at Brutus's calm demeanor. That afternoon marked a silent victory. For the first time, Lily saw beyond Brutus's fierce exterior and glimpsed the gentle soul beneath. She realized that trust was not something forced but earned, through patience, love, and understanding. Back home, the atmosphere in the Thorn estate had changed too. David no longer watched from a distance with skepticism, but joined Lily in small ways, helping with training and sharing moments of quiet pride. The walls of silence between father and daughter were slowly crumbling, replaced by a new foundation built on respect and shared struggle. Lily felt a sense of belonging she hadn't experienced before. Brutus was no longer a source of fear, but a symbol of her own strength and growth. Every growl that softened, every step taken without fear, was a testament to the resilience they had both discovered within themselves. That night, as she lay in bed with Brutus curled at her feet, Lily whispered, "We're not broken. We're becoming." And for the first time, she truly believed it. Life had settled into a rhythm. Lily and Brutus had become inseparable, partners facing the world together. The terrifying growls and snarls were now replaced with soft whines and contented sighs. The dog that once seemed destined to break her spirit had become her greatest source of strength. But just as their bond grew stronger, a new challenge loomed on the horizon, one that would test everything Lily had learned about patience, courage, and trust. It started with a letter. One of the neighbors, still wary of Brutus' reputation, had filed a complaint with the city about the dog's presence. Despite the progress, rumors and fear had not entirely faded. The complaint threatened to force David to remove Brutus permanently. When David told Lily about the letter, she felt a wave of panic rise in her chest. "No," she said firmly. "Brutus has come so far. I won't let this break us." Determined to fight, Lily began preparing for the hearing. She gathered testimonials from neighbors who had seen Brutus's transformation, the children who had petted him without fear, the trainers who had worked with him, and even the delivery men who had witnessed his calm behavior. At the same time, Lily doubled down on training, taking Brutus to obedience classes and working tirelessly to ensure he was the best dog he could be. David supported her quietly, realizing how much this fight meant to his daughter. The hearing day arrived with heavy tension hanging in the air. The community center was filled with anxious faces, some skeptical, others hopeful. Lily stood before the panel, her voice steady but passionate as she shared the story of Brutus. Not just a dangerous dog, but a survivor who had taught her about resilience and compassion. She spoke about the long nights filled with fear, the small victories that had built their bond, and the strength they had both found through patience. Her words struck a chord, and slowly, the mood in the room shifted. When the panel announced their decision, Lily held her breath. After a tense pause, the chairperson spoke. Brutus would be allowed to stay, provided Lily continued his training and ensured his safety. Tears of relief and joy streamed down Lily's face. David wrapped an arm around her, pride shining in his eyes. The dog that was once feared as a threat was now accepted as part of the community, a testament to the power of love and perseverance. That evening, Lily sat with Brutus under the stars, feeling a profound sense of peace. She reached down and stroked his head gently. "We did it, boy," she whispered. Brutus leaned into her touch, his eyes calm and trusting. The dangerous dog that had once threatened to break her spirit had instead forged a bond unbreakable, one that would carry them both through whatever challenges lay ahead. The city seemed quieter after the hearing. The tension that had gripped the neighborhood loosened, replaced by a tentative acceptance. Brutus was no longer just the dangerous dog in the news or whispered rumors. He had become part of the community's fabric, a living symbol of resilience and change. Lily and Brutus settled into their new rhythm with a quiet confidence. Every morning, they walked the same trails, greeted familiar faces, and shared a bond that had been forged through hardship and trust. For Lily, the journey had been about more than taming a wild dog. It had been about discovering her own strength, her ability to face fear, and grow beyond it. David watched his daughter from a distance, the walls between them softened and gone. What had started as a challenge to break Lily's spirit had blossomed into something neither of them expected, a lesson in humility, love, and resilience. One afternoon, as Lily and Brutus rested beneath a sprawling oak in the park, a little girl approached hesitantly. She clutched a worn stuffed bear, her eyes wide but curious. "Can I pet your dog?" the girl asked softly. Lily smiled and nodded. "Of course." Brutus wagged his tail gently and lowered his head, allowing the girl to stroke his fur. The moment was simple, but it held a profound meaning. A moment of trust, acceptance, and hope. The girl's mother appeared beside her, grateful and smiling. "Thank you," she said to Lily. "Brutus is wonderful." Lily looked down at the dog lying quietly by her side. "He is," she agreed. That evening, back at the estate, David finally spoke openly, breaking the silence that had lingered for so long. "You've taught me more than I ever expected," he said, his voice heavy with emotion. "Not just about Brutus, but about you, about strength and kindness." Lily felt tears prick her eyes. "I never wanted to prove anything by breaking Dad. I just wanted to be strong enough to face what scared me." David nodded, a soft smile breaking through. "You've done more than that. You've shown me what real courage looks like." Brutus rested his head on Lily's lap, sensing the warmth in the room. The dog that once symbolized danger now represented hope, healing, and the power of second chances. In the days that followed, the Thorne estate became a place of laughter, light, and new beginnings. The dangerous dog had not broken a young girl's spirit. Instead, he had helped build a life filled with trust, resilience, and love. And Lily knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, she and Brutus would face them together, unbreakable and strong.